Yo, 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 what is up? I'm Kuma Akemi, and these are my thoughts on Thriller Bark. I actually have a list. I put a bunch of notes on here so I wouldn't forget and I wouldn't go off track too bad. So I was going to keep it off at the corner, but I feel like I'm going to be looking that way too often, but I don't want to be looking down. So apologies if I seem a little bit scattered here. But first things first, thank you all for being here. And I mean it seriously. I think I'm up to 296 subscribers. And that's 296 more than I was expecting, to be completely honest with you. I don't go out of my way to ask people to subscribe or even to like or comment, just because like I feel kind of awkward about doing it. I'm more or less just uploading my reactions to things, and I do love it when you guys comment. And honestly, anytime there is something thoughtful or you have something to fill in a gap, I really do appreciate that. The people who have commented about like guidance with episodes and what to avoid and also which ones to watch together, y'all are super awesome. So seriously, thank you very much. Now, this arc was very interesting because up until this point, literally every arc has been some completely different thing or genre almost for One Piece. Like the first one was the most piratey, I feel. It was literally like Luffy goes after the Arlong people, and along the way there's Kuro, Don Krieg, uh, we have Mihawk introduced, but it's all just pirates on the sea. And then from there we move on, and honestly I don't want to like recap every arc, but essentially we've gone to Sky Island, and we have now gone to a zombie island. We've got some goth going on here, and I was not expecting that, and I was actually quite pleased by it, especially by the direction Oda took with it, or and like just the creativity that goes behind the idea of zombies in this world. Like everybody has a different kind of zombie or idea of a zombie in whatever television show, movie, book, comic you've ever checked out, right? But in this, it's interesting. There's like two different kinds, right? There is the revive fruit that Brooke has that essentially allows you to come back to life after you've died. And I honestly have a lot of questions about that too, because, it's just like, is it indefinite or is it only one time? And if it's indefinite, that really is a curse. Like, holy crap, especially since he's already down to bones. I'm getting a little off track. But so there's the revive fruit, and then we also introduced the idea of Moria's shadow zombies, where he takes somebody's shadow, stuffs it in a corpse, and the shadow animates the corpse. And the corpse doesn't have like, that's the thing, is like the corpse is mostly led by the ambitions and like the drive and like the personality behind where the shadow came from. However, throughout the series there's been like inklings of the like the corpses themselves having brief memories of their lives before death, which raises the bar on like morality, and also like what is even life and death in this show. I don't know what is what. I don't know. Either way, I'm digging it. I love how Oda took it in this. That being said, Brooke, I brought Brooke up. Wow. I love bards. So the second he was introduced, and I fell in love with his really bad puns. And by really bad, I mean good puns. Like the best pun is a pun that makes somebody else roll their eyes and groan. And Brooke is after my own heart. So I knew from the start I was going to love the guy. But oh my God, the backstory on this guy. Everybody has a depressing backstory, and I think that every time it's introduced, I'm like, okay, you have it worse. We just had Robin's backstory and Frankie's backstory, and now it's like, oh hey, you thought that was sad. How about Brooke, whose entire crew is dead, and he sailed around the sea for like 47 years by himself, super depressed and without a shadow, and like, oh, and if that's not the worst, yeah. You know that whale back in like the end of the first arc or the start of the second? I don't even remember when Laboon was really introduced. It was like Reverse Mountain. But remember that whale? Hey, screensaver number one. Uh, yeah, that guy who he's waiting for all his crew members. Yeah, Brooke is the only surviving crew member. That was like the ultimate twist, I think. I was not expecting it, and they even kind of teased that there was something sad way before, and I should have took it more seriously when Frankie stopped Brooke to ask him something, and we didn't hear what the question or the answer was. But the next time we saw Frankie, he was bawling his eyes out, and we all know in the time that we've gotten to know Frankie, he is the most like emotional guy ever. I love him, by the way, bless his heart. So Brooke, wow, holy crap. And also the fact that they brought back some of the locations that our crew have been on when they first got into the Grand Line. I love it. It was really cool, especially when they went to the jungle place. And I was like, oh, hey, that's really cool. And then they drove it straight into your heart when they're like, oh, yeah, the captain and some crew members got sick. And we don't know what it is. Must have been at that, the ancient island that we went to, because we all know that that's Kestia, and Nami had it, and she almost died. And it's so brutal and just horribly mean of Oda to introduce it that way with Captain Yorkie, because his crew members don't know better, but we as viewers, having listened to Dr. Correa, know that after 3 days he was gonna die, right? Or is it 5 days? She was sick 2 days before she was brought to Korea, and then she said in 3 more days he would have died. So yeah, 5 days. So that is just. And then the fact that the crew kept going, and Brooke was the acting captain, and they teased about being the leader of an assault of a certain kingdom. I want to know more about that. I'm hoping that at some point we get to touch back on that, because the fact that Brooke led an assault of a kingdom somewhere, or for a kingdom somewhere, that guy has a lot of history, and he got a wanted poster from doing some. So hey, whatevs, man, right? You know what? I should jiggle this occasionally, and then we won't have the screensaver problem. Yo, we'll slowly scroll backwards as I talk. Okay, so we got Brooke, and okay, once we're done with Brooke, we have to talk about Usopp. That boy, wow, he had some things going on in this arc. I almost would have forgotten to talk about it because there was just so much other stuff going on, but thankfully I started making a list, and I went backwards with all the most recent stuff I remembered, and I went back to the top, and I got Usopp. Because how on earth can we not address the fact that that boy had some sort of like disassociative moment, and had to put on the Sogi King mask in order to get enough courage to face against Perona? That was all kinds of messed up, also adorable, and I'm glad that he was able to overcome that. But wow, this kid, we need somebody to sit down and talk to him. Like, he thinks that he can't be courageous unless he has the mask, or he doesn't feel courageous unless he has the mask. But literally, he is that. Like, it's just a mask. Oh, I'm sorry, poor Usopp, but bless him. He beat Perona, and we learned that he is seriously the most negative person ever, because even Perona was like, you poor thing, you can be happier than this. I believe in you. Man. But yeah, so Usopp had his moment, but I really feel like he's got to talk to a therapist, because that kind of negativity for so long, it can't be good for you. And I know some people will be like, oh, he's well adjusted for it. But no. I mean, like, think of it. Like, he might be well adjusted to that level of negativity, but that doesn't mean that that is a good one to have 24/7, right? Like, it literally debilitates Zoro and Sanji and Luffy and Frankie when they get struck by Perona's ghosts, which essentially make them feel what Usopp is feeling 24/7. And those guys hit the floor and can't do anything. Like, that says a lot. So yeah, I'm worried about our boy, and I really do hope that they don't just sweep this under a mat, and that they will eventually address the fact that he has some serious self-image problems. I'm glad he's back with our crew, because if he hadn't gotten back with them, I don't think he would have been able to bounce back at all. Wow, yeah. Just imagine an alternate universe where Usopp was left behind in Water 7, and he got some carpenter job, and he was just miserable and lying 24/7 and didn't believe in himself, This way he can still prove to himself that he's worth it, you know? Now that I got Usopp out of the way, I just want to briefly touch on Sanji and Zoro's shadow zombies. They were like the cream and butter or whatever, you know, like they were so much fun whenever we went back to them. First we get, you know, Sanji's personality still showing a little bit, so he goes to protect Nami. But even once that is like poofed out of his brain and he's like super subservient to Moria, he still gets pissed off by Zoro's shadow zombie. Likewise, Zoro's shadow zombie does not give a flying F about Sanji's, so he's doing attacks left and right that are nearly, you know, getting him instead, and then they get into fights. Like, that was, I really liked that. Because you can't just have depressing and scary all the time, at least for me. And I usually have to go find something happy after the fact and, you know, pep myself back up, because this arc has been pretty brutal, especially the last few episodes. My heart could not take much more of that whole Brook flashback. That was like 3 or 4 episodes at least. I digress. Gecko Moria, speaking of terrifying, his abilities are so OP. It makes me want to know instantly what the government used him for. Because, wow. Like, obviously, he's using. You know, this is actually very interesting. Okay, so he is a warlord of the sea, meaning at some point he helped the government do something. Also, at the same time, he has Dr. Hogback helping him out. And Dr. Hogback is wanted technically by the government in a sense. He ran away when he, at some point, to continue his practicing in secret, and he ended up working with Gecko Moria. So how in the know is the government about Dr. Hogback existing there with Gecko Moria? That's what I want to know. And that being said, going back to the whole OP thing, you could do so many things with shadows. Like, they introduced from the very beginning, it was so confusing almost. Like, even the pictures on the wall, the the uh, the armor that they had, you know, the full standing soldier armor in the building, all of that got animated with shadows. So it wasn't just bodies. And then after that, we obviously visually see both Luffy and Gecko Moria take in shadows, and they're living people and they're taking on the shadows. So it's like, wow. And then once you have that involved, Gecko Moria can make whatever shadow, like he can morph the shadow and morph the body of the thing with at the same. It's like terrifying. Like, I don't want to see some of the things he probably has done to folks by morphing their shadow while they were just standing there. If you're just a normal human being and somebody did that to you, I don't know if your body can bounce back from that, can it? Or I don't. What is even the physics? I don't know. Where did my notes go? All right. Gecko Moria, Zoro. Okay, we're coming down to the nothing happened bit. Okay. Something happened, Zoro. You basically gave up your quest to become the greatest swordsman for Luffy. Begged for Luffy's life. Now, I don't think I can get over this, and I don't know how we're ever going to be able to address it, because nobody knows about it except for Sanji, and Sanji is the king of repression. And Sanji has his own issues because obviously he tried to sacrifice himself for Zoro. So like Zoro's like, I'm doing this for the captain. And then Sanji's just like, you are worth more than that. Let me do it for you. And it's like, I don't even know how to unpackage that one, because he was like, I've always been ready to sacrifice myself for the crew. And I'm like, you know, Zoro and Sanji are so equal on some levels, and yet Zoro, I feel like, has more self-worth of himself, because when he goes into things, he's expecting to get them done and to like get it to succeed. And Sanji's like, it feels like Sanji's going in looking for the bottom line. At the end of the day, he'll protect or he'll help. So like the whole Zoro going in to sacrifice himself thing felt like he was going into like, he was sacrificing himself. It was a logical decision for Luffy to keep Luffy alive. But Sanji's just like, your life is meant things and my life is meant like crap. So like Zoro was actually bargaining his life and he was like, I'm worth what this could have been. I could have been a great swordsman, you know, the best swordsman. Here, have it. And Sanji's like, my life isn't worth anything. Let me, you know, give it in place of yours. Like, what is up? Like, there's so many issues on this crew. They need a psychologist. Can we get a psychologist on the crew? Is that going to be a crew member at some point? Maybe they'll just work through their trauma in the next arc. That'll do it. Where was I? Oh, yeah, right. Barty Kuma. I couldn't remember his full name. I started writing out. I'm like, I can't recall. Is it Bartholomew? Is it Bartholomew? But Kuma and Vegapunk. Okay, we touched on Vegapunk before. But the fact that this guy is a warlord of the sea, but he's also a cyborg, and he's been worked on by Vegapunk, who we have now had established. I think we've heard his name 3 times now. The last time I remember hearing it was when I wrote this down in case I forgot off the top of my head. Spandam was explaining how this guy was experimenting with devil fruits, and that's how he ended up with an elephant sword, and how there was also likely that dog cannon and things like that we experienced previously. And that is just bizarre because, like, in my mind now, I'm like, there's there's a mad scientist, I'm assuming working for the government, who is being able to do whatever the heck he wants, carte blanche, with devil fruits, and then he's like keeping notes and stuff. The possibilities in the future are endless if that's the case. All right, Lola. We learned that Lola's mom is a pirate in the New World. So Lola was born in the New World and came onto the Grand Line, or back into the Grand Line, I guess. Like, I'm not really sure with the directions, because they say that, I feel like the Grand Line goes around the planet. It's not the equator, but at the same time, if it goes circular 360 and it's interrupted twice with the red line, and there at some point in there is the New World, when does it repeat? You know, like, did she go off in one direction from the New World and she's coming back around to the New World? Kind of like how you have to pop in and out of the Grand Line with the reverse mountain. I don't know, but that is really cool and interesting. And I bet now that we have the Viver card or whatever from Lola, it'll come in handy at some point, because you can't just establish your mom is hanging out where we're going to be heading, and give us directions to her essentially and be like, if you see her, say hey for me. You're like, what? Okay. So I'm not going to put too much thought into about who her mom is, though, because if she's in the New World, we haven't been there yet. And from the pirates that we've been introduced to in like random jumps to, like with Shanks's crew and Whitebeard's crew and Blackbeard's crew, I haven't seen any female pirates that look like Lola or make me think that they're related to Lola. So that will be a future surprise, hopefully. Let's see. What else? Ace. Yes, Viver cards. Speaking of, the paper that we got back in Alabasta actually has a point. It belongs to Ace, and it's supposed to lead Luffy to him, and it is effed up because, as we all know, in the end of the last arc, Blackbeard defeated Ace, and we got confirmation of that from the newspaper that somebody was reading. Who was that? Somebody was reading the newspaper. I don't recall who it was, but Ace is in Impel Down. That's not good, because we literally just left. Like, we were literally, there was a door here, and they're like, if you go that direction, it's the Marine headquarters. If you go that direction, it's Impel Down. And as we're doing that, likely Ace was already brought there, or somehow got there, or was on his way there. And that's just devastating, especially when Luffy's like, nah, don't worry about it. Ace wouldn't want me to worry about it, but he doesn't know the extent of it. And I feel like there are clues to the extent of it that if the crew members piece it together, they would be more worried. Like the fact that the first thing Kuma says, other than, yo, you're that burglar chick, to Nami is, can you confirm or deny that Luffy and Ace are related? I was like, who does that? Like, why would you just be like, yeah, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too protective of Ace, I guess. Maybe Nami didn't know better, but I would not have confirmed any private information with a Warlord of the Sea. That's just me. Blackbeard, having brought Ace in, is now Warlord of the Sea. That's not cool, but hey, it's good for him, I guess. He literally has killed one crew member of his last crew, sailed around, caught one pirate guy with no bounty, and managed to become Warlord of the Sea. So that's quite impressive. And I think it largely has to do with his Devil Fruit, which is also way OP. I almost want to like put the most OP Devil Fruits that we see in a little room together and just like tell them to fight it out just to see what it would look like. Fishman Island is supposed to be next. I don't know how we're going to get there. No one has touched on the subject yet. Like, Sky Island, we had to rocket ourselves into the sky with special modifications using jet stream that we call the knock-up stream, that I still think is comically hilarious that they named it that. But how are we going to get under the sea with a ship without sinking it, and with Devil Fruit users on the ship? Like, that just seems like a hot mess. And also, I'm wondering, will we get there right away? Because we just kind of blundered our way out of the Florian Triangle, kinda, or onto the edge of it, in any direction. Like, did we end up going the right direction? Because we were supposed to pass through to get to Fishman Isle, but we went all sorts of places. And it wasn't established how far off track we were by the end of this arc, so I'm a little concerned. Oh, yes, and Usopp mentioned a very important fact, and it's been brought up before, like, Luffy always goes up against the toughest guys, and like lately Luffy's been pushing himself like super hard with like gear 2 and gear 3, and fighting, like in this last battle he did gear 2 and gear 3 at the same time, and then he did gear 2 again, and like he pushed himself majorly hard. And so it's just like, what the fact is like, Luffy has outwardly said, I don't remember to who, but he was like, I have to be strong to help my crew members when they're not so strong. And so it's just like, when are they going to start picking up their slack, right? And it's unfortunate because like some of them aren't warriors, and they shouldn't have to be necessarily. You can be a navigator, you can be a sniper, and not be the best at grappling and brawling or whatever, right? But the problem is, since they're pirates and they're doing all this crazy stuff, that often ends up being what they do, or like they're shoved up against forces that are just way too insane. And Luffy has been the most successful at just making up new abilities. I remember it was on like the rooftop, talking to Bueno before he whooped his butt, and he was like, all right, here's the problem. I learned I needed to be stronger, so I just made a new move up. And he was able to do gear 2. I don't know how successful the other crew members are going to be at making up new moves to just become stronger, Zoro, he seems to be the next one up. I mean, he's doing those gorilla arms and everything. He did that one like where he was like all around at once with like different hands and things. So he is pushing it also, but he's not physically being able to, like, he's not as strong as Luffy, I don't think. Like, because like at the end of the day, Luffy is rubber. So if you pound Zoro hard enough, phrasing, I know, he's gonna bruise and bleed internally and, fall over. You can pound Luffy, and as long as it's just a blunt pounding, from what I gather, he does not experience pain. And unless it's the fists of love from his grandpa, I don't understand that. That was like a weird joke, or maybe joke. I don't know. I know his grandpa is strong, so maybe he was using. Oh, you know what? Because I wasn't even thinking about that. He could have been using the extra iron body thing or whatever. But I don't know if iron body really hurts Luffy either, because at the end of the day, it's still blunt attack. Oh well. But I'm rambling now, but essentially I'm just concerned for the crew and how they're going to get stronger if all they're doing is moving forward at a net break speed. Luffy doesn't want to slow down. Nobody is stopping to be like, hey, maybe we should grind some levels. Like literally every video game I ever play, if that's a possibility, I will take hours out of my time to grind levels to make it easier for me when I go into the fights, because I suck. I suck at strategy. I suck at everything else. I'm like, you know what? Let's go in prepared. That's the way I feel like the crew ought to do it, but at the same time, it wouldn't be much of an adventure if they're like, okay, well, sorry. So we're gonna go over here and like level for a little while, and then we're gonna go over there and do that, and then we're gonna over here and level. It's like they're essentially leveling with each battle that they do, just like coasting on the experience. If you haven't played video games or even like have an understanding of that, I'm sorry, but that's my best analogy that I can relate with. I'm concerned about that. Also, honorary mention goes to Icebarg, who has is still trying to find a secretary to fit that role that Khalifa left, and he's like been in two different newspapers now with like different updates about it, and it's hilarious. I hope they keep doing that, honestly, and I don't know who he will have decided on because the selection looked quite interesting. All right, I think with that I have had everything that I wanted to talk about, and if I didn't, then I'm sorry. But tomorrow there will be another upload with the new episodes. What arc are we on? I don't know how to say that. I'm gonna wait for a character to say that out loud, and then I'll say it eventually. But we're on to some episodes next. I hope to see you there. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Until then, I bid y'all adieu.